it was like a bit of a light bulb moment, really.
Yeah.
You just kept pushing with that, to be fair. But yeah, the biggest difference was having more people around you and being able to talk to someone who could make the right adjustments to the bike based off the feedback you were given. Just a crew chief, someone to take that lead role.
Yeah.
With the crew chief thing, you mentioned that your crew chief at that point was actually an ex-rider as well. I've had a few engineers, for example, that have done, I wouldn't say super high level stuff, but they've actually raced a little bit, so they understand car dynamics. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's quite important, or is a benefit if, say, you've got a crew chief, as you call them, that has had bike experience? Do you reckon that really helps the relationship between driver and rider?
I think it definitely helps, yeah. And I think the biggest thing is not just knowledge, but just things you might say, chatter, or I can't turn the bike in, or the front feels high, stuff like things like this. A person that's ridden or raced can, can think about that and understand exactly what you mean. Because like my crew chief that I've had for the last 3-4 years, and who I'll be working again with this year, he's done a bit of racing, he's ridden on the road, does a bit, and he knows exactly what I mean based off, because he knows what I'm saying in relation to what I'm feeling. So I think, having a crew chief or someone around you that has a bit of experience definitely helps. But I do know there is people out there that have not raced at all, can't even really ride a bike, but can set a bike up, so well that, they just don't know how they do it. They've just got that understanding, I suppose.
Yeah, that's interesting, but it's clicked back into my mind. So I drove for a World Series Renault team back in 2011 called Pons, who's Cito Pons.
Okay. Yeah.
And the guy that ran me was a guy called Chus Sanchez, who also was a crew chief for Pons' race team. And I think he was on, I think Pons has a son, or had a son that raced in Moto2 at the time for a while.
Yeah.
Two of them.
Two of them. Yeah.
Okay, so the older one, he was running him the year after, so it would have been 2012, 2013.
Axel, his name was.
Axel, that's the guy. Yeah,
he's finished racing. He finished racing and is now a model.
Okay,
I couldn't remember which one it was.
Yeah, Axel's the model. Very good looking. I've just got to say that because he's a model, but.
Yeah, fair play. But this guy, anyway, this crew chief / engineered Heikki Kovalainen. Actually, when he did World Series Renault, then he engineered me, so he actually came down a level in driver, unfortunately for him, and had to put up with me. But no, he was really flipping good, and it's interesting from my point of view anyway, that he was so good. I mean, the car he gave me when I first jumped into it was unbelievable, and I don't know if I've ever driven a better car throughout a whole race stint than what he gave me.
Wow.
But then he was super good on the bikes as well, and I don't think he raced bikes before. He was more into cars.
Just had that understanding of how things work, geometry, balance, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Crazy, so isn't it?
Really crazy, yeah.
Nick, are there, we have lots. So when we're debriefing and talking to crew chiefs about setup, bike riders have lots of different ways of describing, and
I see you doing this a lot.
Yeah, you see there's
a lot of hand gestures.
Yeah, if you ever seen the Alpine Stars did a video with all the Alpine Stars riders, and they were like, how do you explain this? And you just see them all going
yeah, with the chatter in front, I guess.
Yeah. Are there certain ways you describe how the car feels and is behaving through hand gestures or noises, or I'm not going to do the noises for you. No. You've got to do the noises.
But mostly, it's obviously we talk about platform because they're much more aerodynamically advanced than a bike, because we actually have a floor underneath that we can utilize in terms of setting it up with. Now you've learned a bit more rake, less rake, high downforce, low downforce.
I understand.
Obviously, you have your understeer or oversteer because you've got two wheels that slip at the front. I don't know how you would describe understeer or oversteer. I guess it's still a similar sort of thing, but you may use a different terminology.
Understeer is a crash.
Understeer is a big one. It's a Marquez that you can't save, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how we talk about it mostly. So I guess the difference is that we talk about aero and an aero platform in particular a lot more than you boys would. And then because there's a bigger space at the front as well, sometimes you can have more than one spring, or you had two springs that are further space away than just on a bike chassis. Two front anti-roll bars, same with the rear, and then you've got your standard toe in, toe out geometries, like I said, mentioned ride heights, springs, dampers that you can change both front to rear. So I presume all that kind of stuff is similar. But so how would you explain, say, if you've got traction issues, oversteer through a corner, what would you say? I've got oversteer or what?
Go on, Brad.
I think, fall off high side.
Yeah,
high side,
I've got over the bars and I'm in the gravel.
Come down with snow on my head.
Yeah, exactly. I think, oversteer, like for us, would just be, I think before you get oversteer on a bike, you've got two ways you can look at oversteer. I think the first one is spinning of the rear tire. You're getting on the power, and before the bike's oversteering, you're losing traction.
Yeah, and that's if you keep it on, then you'll get the high side.
And then if you keep it on and shut off, and it grips, and you get sensitive.
That's the biggest thing, isn't it? It's knocking that throttle off. Once it slows, if you just let go of the throttle, it will ping. But if you just hold a little bit, don't let it right off, you'll almost like ride out of it. I can imagine a bit like if you're drifting a car. If you just keep it on a bit of throttle, you'll end up driving out of it and catch grip again.
Yeah, exactly. If you do an aggressive motion, whether it be anything, if you nail the brakes, obviously you then pitch the car, which will make you spin faster. Or if you lift, then you let the rear come like this, and then you spin even faster. So it's all about dynamics, both on 2 and 4 wheels.
So go on, Brad.
I was just going to say, like Nick, so when you jump in a car, do you find within like 3-4 laps, maybe what changes might need, whether it be geometry or balance, all that sort of thing? Can you know within literally a short amount of laps?
Yeah, so say if we're doing, so recently we've been developing the new BMW M4, and we've been running in this case with heated tires. So your first two, you're straight out and straight on it, and you can do your fastest lap if you really get on with it, even on lap 1. So you can literally, say if you made a spring change or a rear bar change, you could know within 2 laps 100% that it's maybe you've gone too far, or you need another similar change again, or maybe you want to reset that bar and try a different tuning tool, whether it be less rear wing, different rake, ride height. Whereas I guess with you boys, confidence must be having 2 wheels, not 4. Confidence to build up to the same level each time must take longer than, I've got 1 or 2 laps, because getting the inside of the tire warm and then the confidence in that front's going to bite must take for ages, because I'd be, excuse my French, shitting myself for a long time.
I always feel, for me, like the first session of the weekend is always about building, but I find once you get into qualifying in the end of the race, if you make a change, within a lap whether you've done the right thing or not. And with the way how good the tires are, how good tire warmers are, you can pretty much go straight out of pit lane and almost go as hard as you want. You know what I mean? Within reason. But especially after 1 out lap, you can go hard straight away, as long as the tires have been up to temperature for the right amount of time and they're pressured properly. The way how advanced tires are and tire warmers it's impressive, really. Scary at times, but you can do it.
I bet that is scary, because do you ever have, I don't know about the bike tires so much, so again it can be for the listeners, so say on a Michelin tire we have the shiny coating on the top. So do you guys have to scrub that off, or do you not have it at all, or what do you have on a bike tire?
It doesn't seem that, like, the bike tire is shiny, but it doesn't for me, and I've never had to experience scrubbing a tire in effectively. I've always found, like in a qualifying session for me, is I'll come in halfway through and I'll put another brand new rear tire in, and I'll go straight out. Within 1 out lap, I'll be straight on to my fastest lap of the session. So you don't have to worry about scrubbing it so much. It seems to give you that grip straight away. Again, as long as it's pressured and up to heat properly, there's no reason why you need to scrub it. But I've seen some tires always look shinier I suppose it's that like release and agent within the mold when they produce a tyre or something, but it never seems to give lack of grip. Well, I don't know about you, Alex. Have you ever experienced any of that?
I think by the time you get to the final corner and you're pinning it on the exit to start your lap, it's scrubbed in.
Yeah.
I think if you're rolling off, the only time I've ever felt like maybe a little bit of movement from like a new tyre would be, when you come out of pit lane, you bank into that first corner, you can just feel the bike sit into the tyre almost, and it's just literally like a bob, and you just feel like, oh, it's just where that's it. And
that's it. It's gone, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really, really straight away, to be honest.
Yeah. So we find that definitely on the heated tires, but a lot of the time with the car racing, we don't use. So on a Pirelli tire, say in the championship I'm racing, which is GT Masters, we will not use tire heaters. So we're having to bring them up, and then those edges really need to be probably the hottest point of the tire, just to try and get them in so you can actually create load to then bring the core temperature through. Whereas if you're running tire warmers, then yes, you can get on with it kind of straight away. So yeah, I didn't take into account that you guys are always using tire warmers.
I missed that point as well. I always thought that you guys would always use tire warmers. I never thought that you'd run, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, if we were to go out on a cold tire, you wouldn't get past turn 2.
No, exactly. It'd have to be super slow, right?
If I'm training on the super motorbike and it's a kart track and it's decent weather, I just don't bother with tire warmers, but I then have to take 2 or 3 laps of consecutive pace building to get it up to temperature to then create the grip. Because if I went out turn 1, threw it in, I'd just be where I normally am, in the gravel. I want to get there later. I want to get there later in the day. So yeah, I was going to ask you, Brad. Like we talked about being like, feeling new tires, because riders generally, Nick, fall into one of 2 categories. You make a change to the bike, they're like, it's a bike, I don't feel any difference. They'll just ride it hard. And then you get people a bit more like myself. I'm very susceptible to changes and
sensitive.
Sensitive in one respect.
Yeah, exactly. In his heart and in his riding style.
Stop it. So, Brad, are you somebody who really feels the change your crew chief makes, or do you just sort of have the attitude, just going to get on, ride hard?
Again, yeah, I'm probably a sensitive rider in that respect.
That's nice.
No, like my crew chief, he can make a small change, even like on the R6, like half a mil of ride height in the rear, which half a mil sounds nothing, but I would know that he's done it. I'd be able to tell you the difference straight away.
Yeah.
Which I think in one aspect, having loads of feeling is a good thing. And then in another aspect, it's sometimes you can be too fussy, you're sort of looking for something that's not really there sometimes. So you've got as a rider, I always feel like you've got to draw the line somewhere and just take it for what it is. It's a happy medium. I can imagine in a car, like anything, it's always a compromise, I would have thought.
Yeah, you're completely right. And again, you have 2 different type of drivers. So you have the people that, I'm one of them, but will actually just drive anything. I don't care. If it's go oversteer, all right, then whatever. Then if it's going to steer, okay, well, I have to drive differently. And actually racing in Porsche Super Cup taught me that, because you have no traction control, no ABS anyway, and the car is very difficult to drive. So you have to just adapt. But then also driving in endurance races, you have 2 or 3 drivers. And say if someone or one of those drivers is a little bit more sensitive, like you 2 guys, then you have to maybe cater to their needs. So if they really hate oversteer, then I'm happy to just say, okay, well, dial it out, you do it, and then I'll just drive it. So that's how we kind of deal with it. But again, sensitivity can't be as much as a bike rider, because the limits you guys are on, I feel that you have to be closer to the limit to be fast. And the danger aspect of it is like pushing it to that limit. I know you're both lunatics, but it's still got to be some sort, like when you're tipping it into, say, Cox at Silverstone, and that the bike's a bit loose, that if you are sensitive, you're going to feel that extra little wiggle over the bump on the entry a bit more than, say, someone else that isn't. And then you have to make sure that that's right, so you can really, maximize and execute your quali lap.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's in a weekend, it's like free practice 1, free practice 2, qualifying. I always try to dial out these little things, whether it be bumps, turning, this, that. But then when I get to the race and I'm in the battle, it's almost like it is what it is, and what my feeling almost goes out the window, and it's just all about going forward. So I think it's being able to turn that on and off can be quite difficult, and sometimes, as I said before, I have been too fussy in the past, and I've had to learn from that. The crew chief basically, has to tell me, you're looking for something that's not there. It's going to be bumpy here. Just ride it, and that's how it is. So you learn from that, which is important. So
yeah, it's like a lot of the time you'll get you've done your free practices, you've done your quali lap, and then you get into the race and you finish the race and you go to crew chief, oh, that felt really, the bike felt crap. Like, what was going on? And then you sit down in the evening and he goes, well, you were braking harder, you were braking later, you were going faster. There's all these different.
And you weren't on the new tyre like quali.
Exactly.
Yeah, less grip.
Exactly. But then if you can't switch that off completely, like the first time that really happened to me was when I first raced at Imola, and we sat down. I had a really good Friday and got into Super Pole, and we sat down on the Saturday night before the race, and I was like, I'm just not happy. And the guy I was working with at Toth, and we'll talk about Toth in a minute, Brad. He said to me, Alex, just race tomorrow. Just race. You don't think about the bike. Don't think about what you're doing. Just race. And, really helped. And
there's a lot to be said for that, and it's too true.
Yeah. Sometimes you've got to switch off. I think.
Yeah, you have.
No matter what form of racing, you've got to switch off. And
that's when you're going to be your fastest, though, because if you're over analyzing, thinking, I need to, pinch the brakes 2 bar here extra, roll off, and you're not going to be as fast. At some point, you have to let the subconscious natural talent that you've obviously built up over X amount of years just crack on, and that's when you'll be a B1 and be able to get in that rhythm and do the consistent laps, in my opinion, anyway. So
for sure.